They said humans were finished, until the lost warriors returned. In the far future, humans were no longer the rulers of the galaxy. Once they had ships, cities, and power. But wars, greed, and time had broken their unity. Alien empires rose, while humans fell. One by one, human colonies were taken. The Eastern Order, a strong and proud alien empire, became the new rulers. They called humans weak, divided, and finished. The Eastern Order ruled with order and fear. Their soldiers were trained, their leaders smart, and their technology powerful. To them, humans were just workers or rebels who would soon vanish. Many believed that humans had no future, but they were wrong. One day, a strange signal reached the command center of the Eastern Order. It was short, just one word: Yarmouk. The alien officers looked at each other, confused. To them it meant nothing, just a forgotten human word. They laughed and ignored it, but in the next few days something started to change. A small alien base near the edge of the desert planet Z636 went silent. Then a patrol ship disappeared, then two more. A captain, badly hurt, sent one final message. Before his ship was lost, they could fight like ghosts from the old world. Now the Eastern commanders were not laughing. They sent more troops to the planet. A large army, trained, armed, ready. The plan was simple: crush whoever was hiding there. But when they landed, they found only silence. No cities, no bases, only desert, wind, and broken ruins. Then came the attacks. Fast, sharp, silent. Alien patrols were attacked in the night. Their weapons were stolen, their machines broken, their soldiers never returned. The attackers left no signs, only strange symbols in the same word: Yarmouk. The alien general, a proud and cold leader, became angry. "Find them," he ordered. "Find these humans and bring them to me." But his soldiers were afraid. They said the enemy did not fight like other humans. They did not beg. They did not run. They did not fear death. They moved in groups, worked like one mind, and spoke with strong belief. It was not just war. It was something more. And still, no one knew where they came from. Then one day, a spy ship caught a message between two human fighters. It was clear, now. These humans were not rebels. They were soldiers, trained, loyal, and deadly. They were not part of any known human colony. They came from a lost world, a place forgotten by both humans and aliens. They followed old ways. They lived by a code. They did not fear death. And their leader? No one had seen his face, but his name made the aliens pause. The Sword of Yarmouk. Who was he? A man? A myth? Or something else? The general sent drones to search for him, but the drones never came back. One soldier said he saw the leader from a distance, a man in simple armor, standing on a dune, watching the stars. He did not run. He did not hide. But when the soldier blinked, the man was gone. Soon more alien outposts went dark. One night, the sky turned red. A fuel depot exploded. No one saw the attackers come or leave. Only one wall remained standing with a human phrase carved into it. We were never finished. The Eastern Order was now fully alert. The generals called for backup. The Emperor was informed. All across the galaxy, alien commanders were told to prepare, because now, it was clear. The humans had returned. But not the humans the galaxy remembered, not the weak, soft, divided ones. These humans were something else. They were calm, deadly united. They remembered honor. They remembered faith. And they remembered a battle, an old battle called Yarmouk, a war many had forgotten. A name the galaxy thought was lost, but now that name had returned. And with it, a fire. In the command center, the alien general looked at the reports. Every line told the same story. Every officer gave the same warning. The humans were rising. He stood up, walked to the window, and looked at the stars. "What kind of humans are these?" he asked. A quiet voice behind him answered, the kind that history forgot. But the desert remembered. And far away, in the heart of the burning sands, a human leader looked up. His soldiers stood beside him, silent, ready. He raised one hand and spoke just one word. Begin. The desert planet that became a battlefield, they called it a dead world, a place of endless sand, dry wind, and silent skies. Nothing lived there for long. No food, no water, no peace. The aliens thought this desert planet called Z636 was useless, just another forgotten place at the edge of the galaxy. But they were wrong. The desert had been waiting. It had been waiting for warriors, and now they had returned. From orbit, the alien ships dropped thousands of soldiers onto the surface. They came in black armor with red flags. Their weapons were sharp. Their orders were clear. Destroy the human rebels. Fast. Clean. No mercy. But what they found was not what they expected. There were no cities, no camps, no targets, just heat, sandstorms, and silence. Days passed. Their machines broke down. Their water ran low. Soldiers grew tired, angry, confused. Then the attacks began. A patrol vanished in the south, another one in the east. A third found burned machines and footprints, but no enemies. Only a single word carved into stone: Yarmouk. The alien commander, General Kirax, was furious. He ordered drones, scouts, and strike teams. Find them, show them what fear is. But the desert had chosen its side. The humans attacked only at night. Their armor was light, their steps silent. They came from the shadows, hit hard, and disappeared. No sound, no mistakes, no fear. They moved like the wind. They struck like fire. They didn't fight like rebels. They fought like soldiers. Old, trained, and patient. The aliens started calling them ghosts, but they were wrong again. They were not ghosts. They were survivors. They were warriors. And they remembered everything. Long ago, their people were pushed into the farthest corners of the galaxy. They lost their homes, their cities, their power, but not their belief, not their discipline. On this desert world, they had trained in silence for generations. They studied their history. They remembered Yarmouk, a battle where few defeated many. Now they would do it again. General Kirax changed his plan. He gathered all his forces and moved toward the center of the desert. They can't hide forever, he said. We will burn the whole planet if we must. He didn't know the desert was a trap. As the alien army moved deeper, the land became harder. Rocks, cliffs, sharp winds, sand that swallowed machines. Drones failed. Maps changed. Signals were lost. The humans were guiding them, not with hands but with the land itself. Then came the sandstorm. A great wall of dust and wind swept across the land. The sky turned orange. The sun vanished. Communication ended. The alien army was blind, lost. And the humans were waiting. They struck hard from behind rocks, from above cliffs, from beneath sand. Each attack was fast, controlled, perfect. No noise, no panic, only skill. The aliens tried to fight back, but they didn't know where to shoot. Every bullet hit only sand. Every missile hit only shadows. A captured alien officer, wounded and shaking, said just one thing before dying. They don't fight for power. They fight for purpose. And the purpose was clear now. This was not about revenge. This was not just a war. This was a message to the galaxy. We are still here. We are still strong. And we have not forgotten. In the deep desert, the human warriors stood silent after each battle. They did not celebrate. They did not cheer. They only cleaned their weapons, helped their wounded, and prayed. Their leader watched everything. He spoke little, gave short orders, and his eyes were sharp like the edge of a blade. Some called him the Sword of Yarmouk. Others called him the Commander. No one knew his real name. Only his soldiers knew his heart. And they followed him without question. One night, as the wind howled and the stars shone above, he spoke to his fighters. "We don't fight because we hate them," he said. "We fight because we remember who we are." They nodded, then disappeared into the sand once more. Far above, in his ship, General Kirax watched the battle reports. He saw his losses grow, his soldiers afraid, his ships failing. He clenched his fist and gave the final command: "Bring the full army, all of it. If this planet wants war, then we give it war." But the humans were already waiting, and they were ready. One commander, one faith, one impossible plan. He never shouted. He never showed fear. But when he spoke, every soldier listened. His words were not loud. They were clear, sharp, like a blade cutting through smoke. His name was not known across the galaxy, not yet. But among his warriors, he was already a legend. They called him the Sword of Yarmouk. He was not the strongest man, not the tallest, not the fastest, but he had something no enemy could break: unshakable belief. In the desert command shelter, no walls, no roof, just a stone floor and the sky above, he stood with his officers. A simple map was drawn in the sand. Alien armies were marked in red stones. His men, in white, outnumbered, outgunned, surrounded. Yet he looked at the map with calm eyes. "This is not a problem," he said. "This is a gift." His officers were silent. They had learned not to question him, not because they feared him, but because he was always right. He had studied every battle in human history, not just victories, but defeats. He knew the mistakes empires made when they thought numbers would win a war. He knew the truth. Belief is stronger than fear. Discipline is stronger than pride. His plan was impossible on paper, but war was not fought on paper. War was fought in minds, in hearts, and in the will to keep moving when everything said stop. He walked across the sand map and pointed. "This ridge," he said. "We let them take it. They will think they are winning." He moved a stone. "This path here, we close it behind them. Slowly, quietly." Another stone. "Here, we strike at night. Not to kill, just to make them doubt." And then he smiled. "When they are confused, tired, angry, then we cut off their escape and then we finish it." One of his younger fighters spoke up. "But Commander, they have machines, flyers, heavy guns. What do we have?" He looked at his soldiers, men and women covered in dust, sunburned faces, scars from battle. He replied, "We have what they can never copy. We have purpose." The soldiers nodded. They understood. Every man and woman in that army knew what they were fighting for. Not for gold, not for power, not for land. They were fighting because they remembered the old stories, the old ways. A time when a small group of believers stood against the world, and won. They remembered Yarmouk. Now they would write it again, in stars and fire. Far away, on a high hill, a captured alien officer watched from behind chains. He listened to the commander's plan, his eyes wide with fear. "You're mad," he whispered. "You're outnumbered, surrounded. You will die." The commander turned to him. "Maybe, but not before the galaxy remembers who we are." The alien looked away, afraid to meet his eyes. Down below, the alien General Kirax prepared his final attack. He had gathered his full force now. Heavy walkers, airships, bombers, tanks. The desert shook under their power. Kirax gave one final order: crush them, end this human dream forever. He didn't know the dream had already become a fire, and the fire was spreading. That night, as the stars appeared and the desert wind grew cold, the human commander knelt in prayer, not for victory, not for safety, but for strength to do what must be done. When he stood, his soldiers stood with him. He looked at them one last time before the battle. "We may not have ships, we may not have shields, but we have each other, and we have the truth, so let them come." And as the sun rose, painting the sky in blood-red light, he gave the order: Open the gates. Let them walk into their own defeat. The Battle of Yarmouk was about to begin again, the day the sky turned to fire. The sky was blue when the attack began, but by noon, it was red, not from sunset, from fire. Alien ships filled the sky, flying low with heavy weapons, dust and sand blasted into the air as giant walkers stomped forward. Tanks rolled across the desert, leaving deep scars in the earth. The Eastern Order had brought everything. It was no longer a hunt. It was an invasion. The aliens believed this would be their final strike, the one that would crush the human resistance forever. General Kirak stood tall in his warship, proud and cold, watching the ground below. "This ends today," he said, but the desert had other plans. Down below, hidden behind sand dunes and rocky cliffs, the human warriors waited, quiet, still, calm. They were not nervous. They were ready. Their leader, the Sword of Yarmouk, stood at the front, holding no gun, no sword, only a small device in his hand. Around him, men and women watched the storm coming. He did not shout orders. He only said 5 words. "Let the desert speak first." And then, the traps exploded. Mines buried in the sand went off in perfect rows. Dust and metal flew into the air. Alien walkers lost their balance and crashed. Tanks hit hidden craters and flipped. The desert had become a weapon. The aliens were shocked. They tried to pull back, but the path behind them was already blocked by falling cliffs. Human engineers had weakened the rocks days earlier, waiting for this exact moment. Now the aliens were trapped, and the real attack began. Human fighters poured out from underground tunnels and caves. They moved like lightning, using speed and knowledge of the land. Each fighter knew exactly where to strike and where to vanish. Alien troops fired wildly, but they were shooting shadows. In the chaos, one alien captain yelled, "Where is their main army?" The answer came too late. The main human force struck from the high ridge behind them, a place the aliens had thought was empty. It was not empty. It was the trap. The humans charged with perfect timing, not wild, not messy. Every step in rhythm, every bullet counted. Their war cries were not screams, they were prayers. A small group of alien soldiers tried to break out. They ran toward the North Pass. They never made it. Waiting for them was a single man, the Sword of Yarmouk. He walked toward them calmly, bullets flying around him, eyes locked on the enemy. His armor was old. His face was tired, but his will was unbreakable. He raised one arm, and the sky behind him lit up. Missiles fired from hidden human launchers struck the North Pass. The escape route vanished in fire. The alien soldiers dropped their weapons. Some tried to kneel. He didn't say a word. He just walked past them, deeper into the battlefield. General Kirak watched the destruction from his command ship. His face turned pale. "How?" he whispered. "They were farmers." "Scavengers," one of his officers replied, voice shaking. "Not anymore. There's something else now." The general gave a final order. "Retreat. Save what's left." But it was too late. The human army had cut all exits. One by one, alien machines fell. Troops surrendered or were wiped out. The sky turned black with smoke, then gold with light, and finally quiet. The battle was over. By sunset, the desert was silent again. But it was not the same. The place where aliens expected to bury human hope had become the ground of their own defeat. The Sword of Yarmouk stood alone at the battlefield's edge, looking out across the burning wrecks and broken machines. One of his officers came up behind him. "We did it," he said softly. The commander nodded. "No, they did it. Every man and woman who chose to stand today. This was not my victory. This was ours." Far away across the galaxy, reports of the battle began to spread, first in whispers, then in fear, and finally, in respect. Because the galaxy had seen something it thought was lost. Not power, not technology, but human spirit. The prisoners who stood taller than their guards, They were captured, tied, bruised, weak, but not broken. The aliens had taken 40 human fighters alive during the Battle of Yarmouk. They thought these prisoners would be easy to control. Simple people from a desert planet. Beaten. Lost. But the truth was different. From the moment they were taken, something felt wrong. Not with the prisoners, but with the guards. The prisoners never begged. They never cried. They never asked for food or water or mercy. They just sat, silent, calm, watching. The alien guards laughed at first. "Where is your hope now?" they mocked. One human prisoner, an old man with one eye, replied with a quiet voice, "Hope isn't something you can take. It's something we carry." The guards stopped laughing. They moved the prisoners to a high-security base above the desert. Metal walls, drones, electric fields, 20 alien officers for every one human. Still, something was wrong. The prisoners prayed together. They spoke little, slept in turns, ate without complaint. They even shared their small water rations with injured alien soldiers. "They should be afraid," said one alien commander, "but they act like they've already won." One night, a young alien soldier asked a prisoner why. The prisoner, a teenage girl with dust still in her hair, answered, "Because we are not alone." The soldier was confused. "Your army is gone. You are surrounded." The girl smiled. "We don't mean other soldiers. We mean something bigger. We mean the truth. We mean history. We mean the people who came before us and never gave up." The next morning, one of the alien guards refused to report for duty. Then another, and another. Something was spreading through the prison camp. Not a virus, not a weapon, an idea. One alien officer, reading reports of the human victory at Yarmouk, asked aloud, "How did they win?" "They had no ships, no reinforcements, no chance." A human prisoner nearby answered calmly, "We don't need chances. We only need faith. One clear purpose, one heart." The aliens didn't understand it, but they felt it. The prisoners had no weapons, but somehow they had power. And then came the message. A single drone entered the prison sky one night. It dropped a small device, no larger than a stone. The humans recognized it immediately. It was not a bomb. It was not a call for help. It was a signal. The sword of Yarmouk was alive, and he was coming. The alien base went on full alert. Extra guards, locked gates, strike drones ready, but it was already too late. Not because the commander had arrived, but because the prisoners were no longer prisoners. They stood taller than their guards. They sang softly at night. Songs from Earth. Songs of struggle, strength, and home. The guards could feel it now. The power of people who had nothing left to fear. And then, the power went out. The prison walls shook, explosions in the distance. The sky turned black, then gold, then red, and the gates opened. Not from the outside, but from within. The prisoners had been waiting for the signal, for their moment. They didn't escape. They walked out, calm, focused, together. Some of the alien guards joined them. Others dropped their weapons and ran. The sword of Yarmouk met them at the edge of the desert, surrounded by his fighters. He looked at the freed prisoners and said only one thing: "You never stopped fighting. Now, we move forward." The galaxy would never forget this day, because it wasn't just a rescue. It was a message. You can lock a body, but not a soul. The Empire sent their best and lost them. One by one, they weren't afraid of humans anymore. They were angry. After their defeat at Yarmouk and the escape of the prisoners, the Eastern Galactic Empire stopped pretending. No more jokes. No more waiting. They sent their elite force, the Red Fangs. The Red Fangs had never lost a battle. They were faster than drones, stronger than machines, trained since birth to kill without mercy. Each wore red armor with no names, only numbers. No, faces, no voices, just death. The Empire sent them with one mission: erase the humans, burn their memory from the galaxy. But even the Red Fangs didn't understand what they were walking into. They thought they were hunting rebels. They were walking into history. They landed at night, in silence. No noise, no smoke, no signal. But someone was waiting for them. A child. 10-year-old desert boy stood alone at the edge of the canyon holding a clay pot. The Red Fangs raised their rifles. The boy smiled and dropped the pot. Boom. The ground exploded beneath them. A perfect trap set by human engineers. 4 Red Fangs vanished in a flash of fire and stone. The rest dove for cover. But there was no cover. From every rock, cave, and hill, human fighters appeared. No fear in their eyes, no hesitation in their hands. They moved like one body, like one breath. Every bullet had a name. Every move had meaning. The battle was not random. It was designed by the Sword of Yarmouk himself. Each Red Fang was matched by a human who knew their tactics, who had trained for this day, not in gyms, not in simulations, but in pain, loss, and fire. One Red Fang tried to retreat. He didn't make it far. The same boy who had dropped the clay pot now held a slingshot. He aimed, fired, and hit the exposed wire in the Fang's armor. The machine suit locked up. The warrior fell. A child had stopped a super soldier. The humans weren't just fighting with weapons. They were fighting with memory, with stories, with every lesson passed down by those who refused to be forgotten. The Red Fangs were faster. The humans were smarter. The Red Fangs were stronger. The humans were sharper. One by one, the Empire's best fell. Not because they were weak, but because they didn't understand what they were facing. They were fighting people who didn't fear death. They were fighting people who had already lost everything, except their belief. At the center of it all stood the commander, the Sword of Yarmouk. He moved with calm steps through the fire and dust. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His soldiers moved as if they could hear his heart. He faced the last Red Fang, the leader, the strongest, taller than any man, with 2 blades in each hand. The alien warrior growled, "You are finished." The human commander answered with a whisper, "No, you are finally awake." They fought without words, steel against steel, fire against wind. The ground shook, the air burned, and then silence. The Red Fang fell. The Sword of Yarmouk stood over him, breathing slow, eyes steady. All around the humans gathered. They had won. Again. And this time, the galaxy was watching, not with fear, with respect. The Empire had sent its best and learned the hardest truth. You cannot defeat people who refuse to be forgotten. Yarmouk was never just a battle. It was a warning. It started with whispers, not from humans, from aliens. Across the stars, in Cold War rooms and golden palaces, leaders leaned in and asked the same question. Who are these people? Not because of how many ships humans had, not because of how many soldiers, but because they should have died. And they didn't. They should have vanished from history, but now history was repeating. The Battle of Yarmouk was not a memory, it was a message. And now the galaxy had read it. In every alien capital, the story was the same. A forgotten tribe, cornered by a mighty empire, with no hope. Yet they rose. Again. And this time their victory was louder. The humans didn't celebrate, like others did. There were no parades, no songs, no cities lit with color. Instead, they rebuilt. Quietly, stone by stone, circuit by circuit, family by family. They did not say, "We have won." They said, "We are not finished." The Sword of Yarmouk walked through the rebuilt camp, now a city of survivors, engineers, farmers, warriors, children. He carried no medals, wore no crown, just his old coat and steady eyes. A young fighter ran up to him and asked, "Commander, what do we do now? We beat the Empire's best. We made them run. What's next?" He looked out over the desert, where the sun was rising again. He replied, "Now we wait, not in fear, in readiness, because one day they will come again, stronger, angrier, and they will forget what happened here." He turned to the fighter, "And we will remind them. In secret chambers, alien kings planned revenge. In deep space ships, generals studied human tactics. But deep inside, they were all asking themselves one quiet, terrifying question. What if we are not fighting soldiers? What if we are fighting an idea? Because they had seen something they couldn't understand. Humans who had no reason to hope, still hoping. Humans who had every reason to give up, still standing. They fought for no empire, no greed, no throne. They fought for something ancient, something unbreakable. They fought because someone had to remember, and now, everyone did. Across alien worlds, statues were pulled down, flags were burned, old maps were rewritten, because Yarmouk had returned, not just as a place, but as a lesson. You can crush a body, you can silence a voice, but you cannot kill a people who fight with belief. The Eastern Empire would rise again, others would too. But now, they would look at humans differently. Not as weak, not as simple, but as something dangerous, something eternal. Yarmouk was not the end of a story. It was the beginning of a warning, and the galaxy had heard it, loud, clear, and too late.